So we're going to take a look at these type posters to get an idea. This first one obviously has a great use of justification. It's lined up on both sides. We have a strong contrast between size of typography as well as type of font. And even using the brackets as an artistic element, even though they are part of typography. This next one's great because not only is the quote interesting, but the way they've popped out the letters, you'll see the word truth standing out, and it has to do with the quote. You must stand for something or you'll fall for everything, with TRUTH being highlighted in red, creating contrast, strong left alignment here, excellent use of white space. Sometimes it's just simple, and it's just good being simple. Beautiful font here. You could see how the F in if becomes part of the R in rain. So really, altering that text so it doesn't look as if it just came out of a typewriter, as you just typed it out from the keyboard. You're really doing something special with the typography. The way you're aligning it, the choice of fonts, the way you're stacking it on top of other words, the way some words are larger than others. So there's a great example. Another one, this one fully justified, so we have same on both sides, it's justification. We have a repetition of color. We're going from a medium pink to a light pink to a dark in the middle, and then back to light and then medium. Again, having everything lined up really turns this into a strong composition. This one's totally hilarious because the last thing it is simple. They've used actually the most intricate font you could find, and here it is, the phrase we're all familiar with, keep it simple, yet they're using the most decorative font possible. Again, justified, same on both sides. Something just as simple as this, having 2 or 3 different colors, kind of playing with the font, popping out the traditional way it would look and putting in these little kind of eyeballs. Again, justified on all sides. And lastly, I mean, it doesn't even have to be a quote that's from a text or a poem or a song lyric. It could just be something funny. Here we have a really strong right alignment. The word zombies is in a really bold font. This is what's drawing your attention. So we have a nice contrast in the font size as well as the weight of the font. So we have a really thin font, and then we have a really thick, heavy font. And then to balance that out, we just have a really simple graphic of like this zombie hand coming out from the bottom. So if you want to use a graphic, you can, but it has to be a very small element, meaning it shouldn't be about that. When we look at this poster is not about this graphic. In fact, if we got rid of it, it would still work as a typographic poster, although it looks really nice that it's there. So yes, you can include it, but I wouldn't have it be all about the image. It should really be about the font. So how are we going to get started with this? We're going to start by thinking of a quote, a saying, a song lyric, something like that, and we're going to type it out in Illustrator. Next, we're going to brainstorm some ideas for how this saying would look visually. We really want to find out where the emphasis or focus is of the saying or quote. So this is from a Jay-Z song. It says, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman." And the emphasis would be on that second word, business. I also have a quote here from Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet, which I'll show you how that turned out at the end as well. So after we determine the emphasis, we're going to type out that, keep changing the font. You'll start to think it's spelled wrong because you've seen it so many times. And once you find one that you like, or a couple that you like, you're going to narrow down, again, process of elimination, evaluate down to your best 3, and then from here, let's evaluate down to our best 1. Once we have our best 1, we're going to change the font to outlines, type create outlines. It's already been done here. The font that we just chose. And we're going to look for a supporting font. So we're going to look for maybe an all lowercase, maybe a really thin, lightweight font to contrast against our really heavy emphasis. So keep copying and pasting, and changing those fonts so that you can get an idea of what looks good with each one. From there, you're going to narrow down again. It has a nice contrast to this really heavy one. And you're going to have something like this. You're going to turn it to outlines, and it's going to all be connected as if you typed it out from the keyboard. And what we need to do is we need to break that up, which I like to call chunking your type. And how we do this is we turn it to outlines, type, create outlines. Once it's in outline form, you're going to take your white plus arrow, and you're going to select just each letter, or each word. So A is one of the words, and I'm going to Control X, Control V, Control G. So what I just did is I cut it out, I pasted it down, and I grouped it together. So I'm going to do that again with this word. Control X, Control V, Control G. And what that does is it breaks that word away from the group, and it makes it its own group. So now it can be repositioned on its own. So I'm going to continue to do that. Control X, Control V, Control G. Control X, Control V, Control G. And again, it will become second nature, X, V, G, and X, V, G. So what this allows us is now we have the opportunity to really play with these words and decide maybe not should be really big, because I'm not. Maybe the A goes in there, maybe this goes over here. You want to have everything kind of aligning somehow. And this was our emphasis word, so maybe we want to make that bigger. It allows you, when you chunk your type like this, it allows you to really play with the placement of it. It doesn't, it loses its, it's no longer looking like it just came out of a keyboard. It's really becoming like a design element. So you're going to open a new document to the size of the type poster, which I believe is 11 by 14. So you would go to File, New. You would choose Print. You would put in inches. Width is going to be, depending on if you want it to go landscape or portrait, 11 by 14. And we want to be CMYK, so make sure that's on, and then click OK. So this would be your new, where am I here? You would bring all this in, copy, paste, and this would be your new page that you'd be working on. Now I'm not going to do it in here, I just wanted to show you how you would set it up. But if I go back, I'm going to show you how you would basically line stuff up. So we're going to use alignment. We're going to use our ruler guides. So you can drag them out. Control R will pop up your rulers. And you want to make sure that you're aligning, Control R, that you're aligning things on the page. You don't want things just to be floating around in space. Everything needs to be grounded somehow. So your choice where you want them to line up. Maybe you want to have a left alignment. Maybe you want a right alignment. Maybe you want both. Maybe you want to increase, the only thing that you can't do once you're in outline form is you can't increase tracking. So if I wanted to increase tracking between this, I would have to go back to my original before I outlined the font and then add the tracking back in. Something to keep in mind. So again, determine where do you want that emphasis. Is A really the most important thing? Probably not. Maybe it's small, maybe it goes over here. And you're going to come up with a couple different sketches, just like we always do in graphic design, is we're not going to just say, okay, I did it once and it looks good and now I'm done. You're actually going to come up with one of my first ones, and then I would just do copy and paste and try it again, try it again, try it again, until I get a bunch of different ways that I like. I would narrow down to my best one. If you want to include some sort of image or graphic, you could go to Google. For instance, I Googled this kind of gold dollar sign that I wanted to replace my S's with. I brought them into Illustrator. I locked them to the page using Control 2. I traced over it using my pen tool, and then I changed it into a gold gradient, going to Window, Swatch Libraries, Gradients, and then Metals. And then I got like this gold color gradient. But remember, if I'm going to include a little bit of a graphic in here, I don't want it to be about the graphic. I really want it to be about the text. And here's the other example I used. These were free textures, again, from the internet. Download free textures, Google free textures. You'll be able to download them as long as they're high resolution. They should look good. This one I actually changed the opacity so it looks like another layer there. And I played around with the position of the font, the alignment, the contrast, the size, the scale, the emphasis. My little pen drawing is this rose, which again I lowered the opacity of it so that it's not 100% because I feel like it would take away from it. So I really just put it at like a very light 30-40%. So again, you are going to create a poster that's about typography. It's not about the graphic. If you need to include a little hint of a graphic, you can. But it's really about how you're going to position this type and what type are you going to use. The word love is frequently seen in a fancy script like that, like a handwriting script. It's soft, it's romantic, it conjures up the idea of love. The Trajan Pro font that I paired with it is a really intellectual, old school book type written font that would go with something like Shakespeare. So again, I'm trying to look for fonts that combine well, ones that support each other, and take the next few weeks to come up with a really great typographic poster.